Thanks, everyone. So the last time, let's see if I can get this to work. The last time I was here at this podium was in March of 2012. My startup, Plum Analytics, was 6 weeks old at the time, and I was demoing at the old Philly Tech meetup. And it was a chance to talk about, I had to convince them that we actually had a product, which we didn't, right, so that I could demo. And so we very quickly built a prototype and were able to get this great jump start to the startup. Then less than 2 years from the time we founded the company in January of this year, we were acquired by EBSCO Information Services. And it's been quite the ride. So what I want to talk about, which is Mike is correct, he didn't need to go into my bio because he saw my slides and said, wow, there's an awful lot of slides about you in here. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the journey that I've been on and see how that goes forward. So it starts way back when. This is, this is a picture of my dad with my daughter Abigail. So when I was about Abigail's age, which in this picture she was about 9, I told my dad what I wanted to be when I grew up. And I wanted to be an architect. And he told me, well, that's nice, but it's really a male-dominated field, and it's going to be really hard for you to get traction as an architect. So I told him, okay, great, I'll be a computer scientist. And my dad had no idea what that meant, and he said, oh, okay, that sounds good. I said, okay, great. And that was, to be fair, the only time my dad ever didn't encourage me to do anything, because he was always there as a champion and as a supporter. So here's a picture from a recent hackathon. And this hackathon, if you look, it's pretty indicative of how many women are in the room, right? You can kind of maybe count 1 or 2, and that's the environment. I went to Carnegie Mellon as an undergraduate, and that was kind of what a typical lecture looked like in computer science. So if I were to ask a question, the entire room would swivel around to see who the female voice was in the room. So anything I needed to do, it was almost as if I was shouting it through a megaphone. So from a girl who was the first one in her family to go to college, and now I'm on stage all of a sudden when I'm just trying to learn, I learned very quickly what it was like to feel like a woman in technology. I launched my first startup in the late 1990s. And I was so excited to get my first bit of PR. So probably a lot of entrepreneurs in the room know how that feels when you finally get some journalist somewhere to write about your company. And the article came out, I rushed to read it, and the editor had chosen to take my name, Andrea, and it was clearly a mistake, and changed Andrea to Andrew. And I was just so discouraged that here I am trying to be this role model, and it just felt like, wow, what's going on here? My second job out of school, I was a programmer. I was a female engineer in a department of 300. There was one other female engineer in the company. So kind of as I've gone through my whole career, it's been this feeling, right, of being a little bit of standing out a tiny bit. I have 2 young girls, and I try to hope, I mean, I love, front row seat, hello Zoe, and I hope that the world would be a different place for them growing up as hopefully entrepreneurs or whatever they choose to be. But this is a picture from the bathroom line at Apple's latest Worldwide Developers Conference. So I want to know, other women, have you ever seen a bathroom line that looks like this? Never, right? But that is the culture that happens right now. That's reality. Venture capitalists talk a lot about pattern matching. And pattern match, that they can find great investments because they've done it before and they know how to find patterns. So if you're a young 20-something male from a prestigious school, you match pretty well. If you're a 40-something woman who's a technologist and a soccer mom, not so much. So what do I do about that? It's be the counterexample. Just by being successful, being out there, being visible, the stereotypes change, they bend until they break. And hopefully my daughters have an easier route forward just because of these examples being out there. Who says it better than Gandhi, right? Be the change you want to see in the world. Be out there and do what you do. But starting a company is a lonely experience in a lot of ways. So whether you're male or female, whether you're high school dropout or a Ivy League college grad, black or white, you face these challenges. You're going to have to convince someone, anyone, that your product, your idea, what you're so excited about is worth going after. So what I want to share kind of the rest of the talk is the lessons I've learned that hopefully transcend just beyond the personal challenges I've faced and look at being that leader. So when you start something new, this new innovative thing you want to do, it's like starting a marathon and you envision the finish line. You envision getting there and what it's going to feel like when you cross. You know, are you going to beat your best time? You've done a lot of training. It's all about getting there. And the reality is somewhere, and it depends on how well you've trained and maybe where it is, but maybe around mile 20, it's not about that. It's about figuring out, can you take one more step, right? Can I make it one more step? So I was chatting with my co-founder earlier today, and I was telling him about this presentation, and we were laughing about those times when it was like, man, can we go one more day? Can we figure out that next thing to do? And it's a very real feeling. It becomes just step by step, how are you going to move forward from where you are? This quote, when you want, let me scroll up a tiny bit. There we go. When you want to succeed as bad as you want to breathe, then you will be successful. So what keeps you going? It's that tenacity. It's making sure that no matter what obstacle you face, there's a way to get past that. My own path, and like many others in whatever you're doing, it isn't a straight path. There's lots of decisions to make along the way. Lots of times when it's not clear which is the right way to go, which is the right place to even spend those spare cycles you think you might have. My own path, as Mike alluded to, is I started as a software engineer, and I was going to build products in between science and technology. I was going to be that person who bridged the gap. And I did that, and when the dot-com boom happened in the mid-90s, I joined Infinitics, and I was gleeful that someone would actually pay me money to sit and write code all day long. Like, I could not imagine a cooler thing to get paid to do. And then one day, I got called into the GM's office, and he said, guess what, Andrea, we need you to lead projects. And I'm like, no, I write code. I'm good at writing code. That's what I do. And he's like, well, you can do that, but if we don't, the current project lead, it's not going well. And if we don't have someone to run this project, the customer will cancel, we won't make payroll. And so I don't know how much longer you have to write code on that project you're caring so much about, but it won't be here long. So this is, this is what you need to do. You have a choice, of course. We can't force you to do this. I said, okay, fine, I'll try it. And I had 2 weeks to figure out how to lead a technology project. And to their credit, I had a mentor inside the company who said, and he knew I was a developer who strolled into work around, 9 or 10 a.m. He's like, any morning at 7:30 a.m., I'm here. If you need advice, I'll help you out. So I deemed I needed advice, and I showed up with my very large latte every morning at his office to seek his counsel, and it was invaluable, right? A mentor is someone who can help you through that transitional time. So I went from leading a project to leading a tech group to leading the technology inside of the company. And every time I kind of went to that next level, I realized I can do more. I want to do more. And I went from there to starting my first company. The dot-com crash happened about that time, and I went, you can find these horrible videos of me from that time period with a really short haircut, talking about how I was never, ever going to join a company again. I was never going to start a company again. I was going to be this Uber consultant who went off and built things for hire. And I did that for almost a decade, again, dating myself. And during that project, this is a talk I gave, during that time, actually, 2002, talking about how I'd rather be the captain of my own dinghy than a mate on someone else's yacht. This is how I was going to spend my time. And during this last consulting project I did, I determined that the team that I was on, we launched this amazing thing in scholarly research, a new search engines to help scholars discover more research. I went back to my original passion of what I wanted to do before that whole, information age thing happened, and went back to, this is what I want to do with my life, and these are the people I want to do it with. So that's where I met my co-founder for Plum Analytics, my current startup. So I left a kind of a lucrative career to go and jump from the train, right? Jump from the train I was on to go and launch a new company again. And people often compare taking a risk on starting a company to jumping off that train. And why would you do that? And I liken it to, you see where that train is going, and it might have been going to a great place, but you're not going to make it through there again, right? It's been walled off, that opportunity is not there. You're much better to take that leap. Take the leap about something that you care about. And for me personally, why I took that leap was twofold. One, to work with the team to build the kind of team that I personally wanted to be a part of, and the way of working that I wanted to really belong to. And secondly, to do work that actually mattered. Not just coming in being a hired gun, but to do something that I thought had the potential to change the world for a better place. So some of my lessons learned. Here's my first one, that you are the hero in your own story. I was facing kind of a dark time, going, wow, how do I tell this story? And one of my colleagues said to me, you know what? You are the protagonist. You are the person that can do this your own way. And it is, when you look at your positioning and you look at how you've done things, you are that person. Kind of corollary to that is, let me scroll up again. Oops. It's your game, so you get to play by your own rules. You can make up how you're going to progress. We bootstrapped Plum Analytics early on. We did not go down the traditional VC path. We got a lot of advice on what we should and shouldn't do. In the end, we did it our own way. One of the things that we also learned was to start with what's simple, what works, and keep investing in that. Keep kind of going down those things that are core and true and working, and you can build really beautiful, powerful things out of that. The one universal truth here is teams want to win. So we try to structure our team and what we do to set ourselves and our team up for success all the way along that path. And here's, from an entrepreneurial perspective and running a company, it's kind of setting up a team for daily progress. So this is a Harvard Business Review report that they surveyed a bunch of workers and said, what's most important to make people feel happy with what they do? And overwhelmingly what came out was the very best days are defined by the days that you make progress towards a goal that matters. The worst days are when you don't. So that's kind of the HBR take on it. The Finding Nemo take on that is just keep swimming, right? Just keep going after what you think is important. We're all here to support this new Philly Tech do meetup. I get the order confused. But this is a picture of my network from a few days ago. The area in blue up there is that Infonautics network from way long ago, too long ago that we don't want to name names. Beneath that is my Philadelphia network. So all the people who are involved here in Philly, I'm sure if I hovered over some of those names, I'd find many of your names on the list. The big orange is the company I worked at for 5 years before starting Plum, and that whole industry that was there. The blue on top didn't exist 2 years ago. This is the space my startup's in and all the connections and network that I made. It's a space called Altmetrics, and all of the people and connections I made, so my network didn't exist there. And that little tiny piece in the middle that you kind of can't see, it's Plum on my screen, but not there, is the new company that I was just acquired by. Those people are all there. So if you fast forward 2 years from now, this graph is going to look different, and that little area you can't see will probably be another whole group there. I bring that up because when I look at who funded my startup, kind of a shocking revelation came in. This has funded it before it was acquired. 100% of the people who funded my startup came from people I already knew. I did the right thing. I got the intros. I got, networked like you would not believe. But getting that seed funding, the money that let us really, beyond just bootstrapping, exist and achieve our goals was all from our network. So really encourage everyone to think about that. And I hope other people have very different stories, of course, walk into a bar, show a business plan, get funded. It's not the way it worked for us. It was really leveraging the people who know us, who know what we can do, and who believe in us. My final message here is that I hope resonates more than anything else is to find your why. Find why you do what you do. For me, I mentioned earlier about building that team that does work that matters. I was actually, 3 weeks after starting the company, I was in the Novatorium office with Mike doing some mentoring, and I got a text message from my mom in all caps letters saying, "Call me now," which, okay. So my dad had broken his leg 3 weeks earlier, and that text message was to tell me that my dad had cancer. And through the good grace of Mike, who shepherded me out of there very quickly to the parking lot and left, a dozen people who wanted to talk to me in a lurch, I made a couple of phone calls. The first was to my family, to tell other people, to kind of make some arrangements and to figure out how I was going to get up to see the doctors that afternoon. The next call actually was to my co-founder, right? It was 3 weeks after he had, just quit our jobs. We're doing this to let him know that this is still important. We're going to do this, and this is about, our startup, Plum Analytics, is all about measuring the impact of research and getting those discoveries to be made faster. This is why we're going to do what we're doing. My brother, who, I was always their geeky little sister who never knew really what I was, never understood what I was doing, called me about a month later to tell me, "Hey, Andrea, that Plum Analytics thing you're doing, get on with that. I can't find any good information about what's going on with Dad online. And we need a better way to find what research is happening." And that, through that whole journey, that personal journey, it was my why. It was what kept me centered with Plum and with building something that truly mattered and made a difference. So it's coming back, once you find that why, that comes back. When you want to succeed as badly as you want to breathe, you'll find a way to be successful. So that's the end of my talk. By the way, we're hiring. My co-founder made me put that there. Thought that was kind of funny, but really appreciate the opportunity to tell you a little bit about my story, and look forward to seeing all the demos later tonight.
You mentioned one of the hardest problems is convincing other people of this crazy idea, and then now you see you're hiring. How did you go from kind of the two of you to building that initial team?
Great, yeah, we found people who from our own network who believed in our crazy idea and were willing to work for cases of beer and favors done in the past and other ways to help us make it so we could get to show other people. Then we actively recruited for what customers could validate this. So we got a prototype built very quickly, and we demoed here live founded the company in January, demoed here at Philly Tech in March. In May, the University of Pittsburgh signed up for a customer of ours. A couple months later, the Smithsonian signed up. And we purposely kept our costs low and really focused on just what it meant then to satisfy those marquee customers, and learned from that and tried to find the other people who believed in us that wanted to help us grow the business. The question was, those marquee customers, were they from our connections? They were both from kind of second-degree connections, people that we had talked to or heard about what we were doing and made that initial introduction for us. Originally, the question was, what was our key target market? So originally, I came from building a product, really, in the academic library space for universities. So we leveraged those connections in the beginning, and we sold to academic research libraries affiliated with universities. Now our market, and it's always been our intent to not just sell to the academic library, but also the Office of Research inside a university, people who fund research. So we just signed our first funder of medical research. We announced it just a couple of days ago. Autism Speaks now uses our metrics to measure the impact of research. And really, that's always been our focus, is people performing, measuring research who want a better, more modern way of doing that. So the question was, did you really bootstrap or did you raise money? And you've been acquired, what's your plan now, kind of? So early on, we self-funded, and then we raised friends and family money, less than $500K altogether, some angel investors in there, no institutional money whatsoever. Our goal was, we've always looked at what we were doing with Plum as being somewhat mission-driven, that we believed the world needed this, and really weren't looking for a quick exit. We're looking for a way to fuel our growth in a way that rewarded those early employees and that early team, as well as gave us the capital. And our partner, who acquired us, also has a lot of data assets that we can leverage to build a better product sooner, as well as a sales force to help us sell it. Great. The question was, when looking for people to bring in, what do you look at early on and how does that grow? I heard a great quote just this past week. Someone was talking about hiring and did you have a doubt? And it's like, you know what? Hiring is almost like a Hall of Fame vote. If you have to think about it, don't make the vote. If it's not clear that this person is going to add something to your team, don't do that. So first and foremost, it's what do we need? Who is the next person? If we can only hire one person, who is that? What is that type of role? And then who is the best person I know in that role? Or who can I ask that can help me get the very best person? So early stage, it's kind of terrible to say it, but those first 10 hires are most critical. So you don't want to dilute your gene pool, because they're going to really set the trajectory for your company. So finding those very, very best people is key. Yeah, so the question is about, given my long tenure in the Philly Tech community, thanks, Bruce. What changes? Is it any easier or harder to start a company? In a lot of ways, it's a lot easier, right? You don't need to hire the same kinds of people you needed to hire 10 years ago. It's phenomenal, get an AWS account. You don't need a sysadmin. There's tools you can plug in and play and prototype. It's way easier that way. The community has been incredibly supportive. People willing to, the Philly community I'm talking about, people willing to step up and say, you know what, you're trying to get that first version of your website launched. that's really bad, Andrea. Here, let me help you, right? And so a lot of people just giving of themselves, knowing that, not huge amounts, and it might be because I worked as a consultant so long, I'm really good at saying, oh, you can help me. Here's 4 hours that would be really valuable if you could just do this, and really kind of piecing it together, and really supportive in so many ways. The question was, as we transitioned from that early stage to now we're trying to grow the company, how did we transition of how we're hiring? And we're still at the point, and I built a very large team, predominantly from who are the people you've worked with in the past that you'd love to work with again? Who's your short list, right? And just asking every single person. Because if your team is willing to bring in that short list of people, that means you're doing something great. And they're excited and they want to keep growing. And as long as we possibly can, getting people who are referred in some way or another, and building it is, we want to grow. We have a recruiter at EBSCO who calls me and says, hey, do you need people? I'm like, I do. Next week, give me one more week. And trying to find those right people to help get to the next level is hard. In any market, it's hard.
Maybe one last question? I've got one.
Excellent.
Okay, so this might be somewhat of a sore subject, not a sore subject, but a touchy subject.
Here it goes.
So you have not announced the price that your company was acquired for. Was that something that you made a decision not to do, or that your acquiring company, that EBSCO, decided they didn't want to happen? And do you think that has any effect on your ability to drag more women into the tech community? Would having a great story of, here's a X dollar amount exit, be helpful to the community?
It may be great for headlines, but I don't think it changes the fundamental, will that get more women in technology? I don't think so. And the decision to not, I don't know, I don't talk about how much I make ever. It wasn't something the acquiring company said, no, don't do. We also sell into a community of librarians, so they don't want to hear about that. It just didn't help us in the market, so why would I do it?
All right, one more. How's your mom doing? She do a good job? Yeah? All right,
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, she's not my daughter, just for the record. That's not my daughter.